Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Currott Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at a classic movie that had reached cult status. I am talking about the original Blues Brothers, dated way back in 1980. This was a musical comedy that ran for 2 hours and 13 minutes long. It is directed by John Landis. It is produced by Robert K. Weiss. The script was written by John Landis and Dan Aykroyd. The cinematography by Stephen M. Katz. And it was edited by George Folsey Jr. And the stars of the movie are John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd. We also have a few cameo appearances by some of the most iconic singers and musicians in the area of soul, jazz, blues, big band era. Those kind of musicians and artists, they all make cameo appearances. And they are just some of the biggest names. And if you think I'm thinking through my ass, well, you're out of your fucking minds. No, in all seriousness, we have cameo appearances from the Godfather of Soul himself, James Brown. We have the King of Slick himself, Mr. Calloway. We have Ray Charles. We have the Queen herself, Aretha Franklin. We also have appearances from Princess Leia herself, Carrie Fisher is in this. We also have Academy Award-winning actor Henry Gibson. We also have some cameo appearances from John Candy. Here's another famous blues musician himself, John Lee Hooker. We have Kathleen Freeman, Steve Lawrence. We have Academy-nominated actress/model Twiggy. We also have legendary Muppet puppeteer and director Frank Oz. We have John Morris, Charles Napier, and even one of the most iconic directors in our time. I'm talking Steven Spielberg. So if you think this was just some low, cheap, low-budget movie, you're wrong. You are 100% dead wrong. This movie was extremely budgeted. And it has to. If you're putting people like James Brown, Aretha Franklin, and so on in this movie is definitely not paid for cheap. These guys are not going to get paid in cheap numbers. They're going to get a big, handsome salary for their small appearances that they're in. When it comes to the Blues Brothers, Jake and Elwood Blues, played by John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd, there's never a normal day for this duo. But the Blues Brothers is a film that has never been told before, and that a lot of the ideas must have had a lot of second guessing from people behind the scenes to determine if this film is going to work out. Both John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd made these iconic characters famous from their days on Saturday Night Live. This was actually the first time in movie history that two characters from a sketch comedy would make its transformation to the silver screen. Sure, there have been others that followed, but I don't think any of them had really ever came as close to the success that the Blues Brothers had. Prove me wrong if you must. But I certainly am strong in my argument that there has never been a film based off of Saturday Night Live characters been as successful as the Blues Brothers. What makes this movie so unique is that we get an origin story from the brothers, even though I don't think they are really actually biologically brothers because they were both raised in an orphanage. But I guess since they seem to know each other as brothers, they're honorary brothers, I guess. They're like brothers from another mother, even though I don't even think they even knew who their mothers were or their fathers because, like I said, they were raised in an orphanage. But they probably lived together and knew each other like brothers to make them brothers. Anyhow, yes, we have an origin story of the brothers, as it was revealed that they were raised in a very strict orphanage in the west side of Chicago. By virtue of osmosis, they learned the blues, and from the opening scenes, the brothers are reunited after Jake was released from jail at a Joliet pen. Now, I don't remember what Jake's charges were, but I do know he spent 5 years in prison. Now he's released, and he's just hoping he and Elwood could get back on the road again, reunite with the band, and do what they have always done: make music and cause chaos, which I will, of course, extrapolate as I go on. The story is actually fairly simple in its delivery, although the circumstances that these guys face is quite complex and quite dangerous and quite risque, to say the least. So we see Jake and Elwood pay a visit to their old orphanage, only to discover that the place needs $5,000 to pay off back taxes, or else this orphanage will be shut down for good. I guess to show some form of gratitude for giving Jake and Elwood a home, they decide to throw a benefit concert in hopes that they could get the right amount of money so that they could save the orphanage. The Blues Brothers definitely travel around the mostly darker regions of Chicago, like the Van Buren Flophouse, Maxwell Street, and Wacker Drive. They make pit stops at a soul food diner owned by Aretha Franklin, a music store owned by Ray Charles, and a Baptist church run by James Brown. And like I said, these guys were not going to play for cheap in this movie. It takes a lot of money to get them into this movie. So like I said, the big budget thing is probably the real reason why this movie reached iconic status. Along the way, the brotherly duo managed to piss off a lot of people, which definitely includes a country western group who didn't get a chance to do their gig because the Blues Brothers beat them to it. So they're on their hot pursuit. Of course, the Chicago PD is also after them. Who can ever forget that memorable scene where the brothers were being chased by the police and they were going all around some kind of department store. They were running over things. They were driving through food courts. They were driving through clothing stores. I mean, it was pretty reckless, but it was some pretty funny shit too. Let's just face it, there was just never a dull moment throughout. Let's see, they were also being chased around by Nazis because they kind of disrupted them from some kind of white power demonstration. So they're also on the brothers. They're also in pursuit of them. What this movie actually does succeed is that it successfully managed to recapture news events from the time period and incorporate into the film. So while the cops, the country band, and the Nazis are after them, there is also music playing in the background, which actually helps solidify some great energy flowing into the story to add excitement to the chase scenes. Let's face it, the movie is not strong in terms of dialogue. It's not strong in terms of dialogue-based comedy, like one-liners or puns. Yeah, they're there, but that's not the real reason people are gonna watch the Blues Brothers. They're gonna watch it for two reasons. Number one, if you're a fan of soul music, jazz, blues, rhythm and blues, R&B, you're probably gonna enjoy the music. And if you do enjoy the music, maybe somewhere down the line there might be the soundtrack that you could probably order. You could also, and the other thing they like to see is the chases, and by God, this movie is filled with them, as well as a lot of wrecked and damaged cars. Can you imagine the millions of dollars in property damage this movie had? This movie also set a record for most cars damaged in one movie. I think they said something around the lines of 92, but I could even be wrong. It might even be as much as 150. That's a lot of cars, I'm telling you. 150 cars damaged. That's not being played for cheap, that's for sure. But at least, during the chase scenes, it's usually backed by a great soundtrack. Blues music, of course, since this movie is synonymous with that. I mean, because you got blues singers and musicians like James Brown, Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles, Calloway, and stuff, and amongst others. Hey, this is what you'll be in for. If you're expecting rock and roll or heavy metal or too much in store of country music, you're not going to get that. If you're into just like subtle comedy with sentimental mushiness in it, this movie's not for you. This is high adrenaline. This movie actually has a lot of excitement and a lot of chaos that goes along. And did I also mention a lot of damaged cars? Oh yeah, I think we've already established that. So the plethora of musical talents added to the cast, like the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, I think of all of them, of all the cameos, I think she actually does she does have the best scenes as the owner of a restaurant serving classic soul food. Even though she's not a classically trained actress, even though I don't think any of them nor were ever really intended. But at least it was actually pretty cool that Aretha Franklin actually does have some great comedic timing, and she's not too bad in acting. Calloway, though, yeah, it's quite obvious that the guy was catching on in age. He is still as slick as he was, strutting his style with his exotic suits, relying on his days when he performed Minnie the Moocher. Hidey, 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 hidey. Odie, 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 odie. I Idaho. Yeah, yeah, good old Cab. He still had it. And there are quite some entertaining moments with the Blues Brothers performing. One of the more memorable ones is when they're at a country bar and they were surrounded by wire mesh so that they don't get doused with beer bottles while they get booed off stage. But even though they're not trained country musicians, but at least they did try to entertain these country music fans in this bar by going over the theme of Rawhide. Rollin', rollin', rollin'. I don't know all the words to this song. Better be careful. Otherwise, I might end up having a beer bottle thrown at me. I'll say anybody will. But I guess I'll just have to always be prepared. When it comes down to it, the whole film itself is just one big epic chase. Even going so far as Jake and Elwood take control of a used police car that zooms through suspended bridges almost like it has a mind of its own. The movie definitely takes real liberation in the uses of the location, which is in Chicago. There is no safe zones when the Blues Brothers are in pursuit. They can be seen everywhere, from train tracks to overpasses, through subway tunnels, even through the Daily Center. The 12-car crash pileup can easily be regarded as one of the most impressive displays of stunt coordination. But underneath all the car wreckage and the millions of dollars in property damage, this film actually works in all levels. Yes, that's right. There's never a subtle moment. There's really never a quiet moment. Hell, even in their own private small apartment, there is no safe haven. Oh, did I also forget to mention that in spite of the Chicago PD, the Nazis, the country singers, they're also under hot pursuit of some deranged psychotic woman played by Carrie Fisher, who's also on the hunt for them. I don't know, I think she's mostly in pursuit of Elwood because he broke her heart and she didn't take it very well. Obviously, she didn't take it very well since he seems to be heavily armed with dangerous ammunition, which eventually results in them blowing up their apartment. But the thing is that in spite of them getting involved in trouble and having themselves, in deadly pursuits, they somehow still manage to remain cool guys. And I don't mean cool as, their black jackets, their fedora hats, and their dark sunglasses that they wear everywhere they go. They're just two of the most laid back individuals. Even in the face of danger, the normal person would be like really stressed out and would be practically scared out of their wits. But these guys, they will go, they have everything thrown at them, and yet they still remain extremely laid back, like it's just a minor setback. And that's what's absolutely cool about them, is that in spite of all the chaos that they're in, they always still continue to remain optimistic in every place they go. And in all the trouble and all the chaos that surrounds them, they just never let stress overcome them or let anything bother them. Even when they had their apartment destroyed by some crazy psycho woman, they just brushed it off like, oh well, we needed a new place anyway. That's just how laid back they are. They just don't let anything bother them. They keep their noses in the air a lot. And you know what? That to me is like pretty much the funniest thing. Sure, it was risque, this movie, but I gotta also give hats off to director John Landis, who seems to love to take risks. Definitely succeeded in making this movie magic by paying off all the dividends for all the damage he's done to the city and the cars. Performance-wise, John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd were spectacular, and their respected roles as the self-destructive, laid-back cynics who carry their class with suave charisma and style that fits the settings of the movie. I mean, they would have to be. Because I just don't think it would work out if these guys were harried and frustrated. This is the beauty of what makes these guys' characters work. The film is definitely filled with crazy stunts, cool music, and plenty of car wreckage for a wonderful night out. There is no subtlety in this movie. There is no settling. I mean, when they finally get to do their live concerts and finally get the money that's needed to help pay for the orphanage, they're still in pursuit, no matter what. But to them, it's just another day's work. They just don't think nothing of it. And even though through all the chaos that has happened in one night, they'll probably wake up the next morning saying, oh, time for another new day. And we'll just forget about all the things that happened yesterday. Because in this movie, the average person will never forget this kind of experience. But to them, they'll just let everything slide. Was it a perfect movie? No. Was it going to win Oscars? Probably not. Was the acting the greatest? There wasn't really much to act about. There wasn't much dialogue. Was the plot too simplistic? Maybe too simplistic. But you know what? We didn't come to watch this movie for complexity. We watched this movie for enjoyment. And I think that's what this movie was to deliver. This is not Shakespeare. This is not going to change your perspective or make you see things to a different light. There's no shining, guiding light to bolster your spirits or anything of that sort. No, this movie is played for laughs, for enjoyment, and for good music. And nothing more and nothing less. If you're expecting more, look elsewhere. This movie says what it delivers, and it sticks to it. And for that, on a scale of 10, I give the Blues Brothers a 7.5. I highly recommend you see this movie. So I guess this ends my writer review for this week. Thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. But just remember the 3 simple rules. Be kind, be courteous, and don't be rude. And I will be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Aykroyd Writer saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.